Galactic Originals is sort of one of those games that I've worked on that I've had, a little bit of passion for, and also delaying the releases and also falsely saying when it's going to release. For those of you who don't know, it's not going to be releasing. Galactic Originals 2 isn't even a thing anymore. I mean, it's still a project, but we decided to go back to Galactic Originals 1 and build that off of the same map. So, because the original Galactic Originals that was released about 3 years ago, which is kind of insane, to be honest. It was we developed the game in Roblox, which is, in itself is not bad. And I know I sound like this. It's because I have a cold. Cold weather tends to mess with your sinuses. But the fact that we went from Roblox to Unity to Unreal to back to Unity to back to Unreal and then to Unity again and then finally back to Unreal. I don't know why that ever happened. I mean, that was a total fucking nightmare. Switching between engines constantly because I wanted I don't want like super realistic graphics. I mean, it's not like insanely like, realistic or anything, but I at least want some like really nice shading to get that realism in a scene. But I don't want to make the game look entirely realistic because now that games and AAA developers and anything like that, now that games say like Call of Duty or whatever is becoming so realistic that people just don't enjoy it anymore. For instance, Fortnite is becoming more realistic with Unreal Engine and the improvement on the game engine itself over time. With like the release with Unreal Engine 5.5, that was, well, pretty much, it was a couple months ago, probably almost a year. I don't know the exact date, but you get the idea. Fortnite used to be a cartoonish type game, which it still is. It's just that people were complaining on how realistic it's getting. Now, I don't necessarily hate older graphics or having that cartoonish style. I just for me, I kind of like mixing both of them. But this game is not cartoonish at all. Despite the genres, community/horror. Now, what I mean community/horror means that the genres are actually split apart from each other and the game modes are split apart from each other. They're not in the same game mode. They're not going to be in the same playthrough. They're going to be in different game modes. They could be on the same map, but they're completely different and altered in their own ways. But I just figured coming out and saying something about Galactic Originals, not Galactic Originals 2, because, that game, that project has already been shut down because I was thinking, and I'm like, well, why don't we just release Galactic Originals 1? Because if we release Galactic Originals 2 on Steam without any sort of information of the first game, it's going to be confusing and it's not going to go well. So I decided to take the map from Galactic Originals 2, from one of the projects that we left it off of, and turn it into the first games. Despite the fact that if we have another Galactic Originals game, it's not going to be the same map. But we have two modes. I'm not going to be discussing which modes they are. Those will be in a demo at some point time soon. There is no plans to release a demo right now, but there is a plan to develop a demo as of speaking of this right now. And I know it's been probably maybe like 6 or 7 months since I actually said something about Galactic Originals as a whole. Yeah, that's not only me being lazy in half of the time, not even working on it, uh, because sometimes I'll just run out of ideas, and I'm usually not the type of person to write down shit. Now that I am, new year, new me, so I'm gonna start writing shit down. Um, I sort of just freestyle in my development of making this game. Like, if I want a certain feature in here, I'll usually think about it, and then my mind will somehow map out how it's supposed to work. Now, keep in mind, the game is still nowhere near finished, and it probably won't be finished in a while. But our plan is to release chapters separately, as a continuation of development. For instance, we would release chapter 1 at a certain date once it's finished and everything, and just, a demo and everything. We'll release a demo, and then we'll release the full chapter, and then we'll release another chapter, release a demo of that, and just keep on doing it until we get the max chapters. And then after that, we'll completely revamp all the chapters and make it into a fully fledged game. Kind of like how Bendy and the Ink Machine did it, but I know that games are trying to go with that mindset, which is a neat and smart mindset of itself. I think it's really good strategy to build your game. A lot of people don't like that. But I do think the strategy is having like a game for like $2, like just one singular chapter. Have it $2, and every time that you add another chapter, you increase the value on the older chapter until, you get to the max chapters, and then they are all into a bundle. And then whoever had whatever chapter, if we would plan on releasing like another update or, the full game, we can always give them an early demo or something. But that is not official. I'm just saying that's pretty sure that's what people used to do. I don't know if they still do that. But yeah. And all of the stuff on GameJolt and all the stuff on itch.io of Galactic Originals 2 will be getting removed next month or somewhere at the end of this month to not confuse people of Galactic Originals 2, because Galactic Originals 1 is supposed to be coming out before the second one. Now, I did have a plan to basically release the second game first and then release the first game after that. Now, some games, I don't really see them doing this, like releasing it that way. You could call it a prequel, but when I actually looked at it and looked at the plan and everything, I just decided to say, you know what, we're just going to make the first game and then make the second game, because it's just going to be confusing at the end of the day, and it's just not going to go well. Other plans I have basically for this game is, like I said, 2 modes. For one thing, I've said from Galactic Originals 2, the Outbreak mode, obviously it's not coming to Galactic Originals 1, and we might use a different idea instead of outbreaking, because having a zombies mode, having zombies in your actual main game is fine. I like games sort of where you're defenseless and you have to use the environment to your ability. But I don't like making a game that's sort of similar to Call of Duty. That's just unoriginal, and that's been done 1,000 times over and over and over again. That was pretty much around the time that survival horror was actually starting to become more mainstream, instead of indie, because at the time there was a lot of indie developers that were making these survival horror games, but also there was still, big companies making their own little type of horror aspect. Now, I wouldn't say that, Activision was trying to make a horror game, but when you put in the aspect of putting in another mode, And then when people play that mode constantly, I would consider it a horror game. Besides the multiplayer, because the multiplayer isn't really. The multiplayer is, I mean, it's not scary, but it does have lore into it that's kind of interesting. I'm just more talking about the horror aspect of it. I didn't want to make Galactic Originals a full horror game, because I figured there would be something else to put in the game. And originally, there's the quote of the day. Originally Galactic Originals was a joke game. Not really a joke game, but we made some sort of image, and then we put it inside a Roblox game and called it Galactic Originals, because we figured we could name it a certain name. And instead of making it a joke game, and also wanting to throw horror in there, that's why I said I wanted to have comedy/horror into the game. One side for, something, the game with a whole bunch of jokes and shit, kind of like how Undertale is and everything, and then the horror aspect, just shifting it completely, like shifting the environments, shifting the tone, shifting the atmosphere, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Yeah, that's how I would take it, and that's pretty much what we're going with. We're not copying Undertale, because that would be unoriginal, and we're trying to be the most original thing of all time. Somewhat. But, yeah, that's what I have so far for Galactic Originals this year, and it's a good start of this year. Like, January, I wasn't really doing anything with this game, and then I thought that I could add more things to this game, and actually, my one problem was the whole programming thing, with blueprints. I'm still getting used to them as we speak, pretty much. There was a certain blueprint that wouldn't work, and it would just piss me off, and then I would go to Unity, and then something would piss me off in Unity, and then I would go back to Unreal and just keep on switching. That's why it was so terrible. And once I actually put some effort into Unreal, I realized how much Unreal is actually a good engine. And it's not as bad as Unity. Now, Unity is probably one of the easiest engines out there to people, because it's most of your indie games and most of your mobile games, if not all of them, have been developed by some sort of small little company that's developing it on Unity, which, sometimes the apps and everything are either malware or they're adware, but sometimes they're at least a little bit of game content in there. Now, some of them are just shit posts and there's zero game content, but they do say that they're games. So I guess you can classify it as a game, I guess. But some of them are just for money. Like, they'll keep on making these games over and over again, and they'll have it different names, but they will also add the same concept every time. Now, there's nothing wrong with adding the same concept to one game to the other, to the next and the next, but you at least have to change something up and not let it be the same thing every time. You would want to add something new upon it. Like, if you want to have older story, you add something new to it. You can have the old, or the main story, but it constantly changes, instead of being this guy walked to the store and that's about it. There has to be something else, like some more detail and context about it. There just can't be one thing every single game, because that shows that there's zero effort into the game at all. But that's my take on it, and I guess this year is going to be somewhat good for Galactic Originals. My bad that it didn't release last year. It was supposed to, well, the second game was supposed to release last year, and then it was put on a complete hold because I'm like, you know what? That's kind of fucking goofy that we're, doing this because we haven't even done the first game yet. And like the whole thing with canceling Roblox versions too, they're still up. They're just not going to be worked on. There's like 3 different experiences of Galactic Originals 1. They're not canon or anything to the story or anything like that. They're just what you could say the earliest versions of Galactic Originals, which is about 3 years old. That's pretty much what I have to say about Galactic Originals. We'll keep you guys updated on the Hexagonal Interactive Studios YouTube, which it's a name changed from Rusty 11 because it was kind of goofy. But yeah, we'll try and keep everybody updated. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have fun.